Okay, can we not make a video today?
But I want to do a video on the Leafs.
Alright, well you weren't up all night partying with Cuba Gooding Jr.
That's not a great excuse, man.
Please stop yelling.
Woo!
Are you just gonna get hammered? Get me a toaster. Magic Angel Robot from Winnipeg!
What the hell are you talking about?
This team is ruining my life!
Draft day, almost. And I'm gonna be doing a full draft preview, just not in this video. It'll be on Thursday night's Panago Pizza Steve Dangle podcast, which is much longer. What I want to do right now is a preview of what I think the Leafs are gonna do. Not just in who they draft, but in what the hell is going on with this team. Because there's been a ton of trade talk with Nazem Kadri, as of course is tradition lately, and so I decided to write a post on it. And as I'm writing this post, I kind of paused and went, what the hell is this team doing? So let's try to figure that out. First and foremost is an issue that nobody's really talking about. The Leafs have got at least most of their core locked up, some to long-term deals, some for at least the next year or two. Phil Kessel, JVR, Tyler Bozak, Jonathan Bernier, Dion Phaneuf. But here are all their free agents. At forward, you got Carter Ashe and Dave Bolland, Nikolai Kulemin, Mason Raymond, Jay McClement, and Troy Bodie. On defense, you got Cody Franzen, Jake Gardiner, and Paul Ranger. In goal, you got James Reimer. Now, some of those guys are unrestricted free agents, some of them are restricted, so there's a better chance the Leafs keeping them, but the point of the matter is the Leafs need to re-sign them in order to retain them. Here are some of the key names not on the list I just mentioned. Peter Holland, Jerry D'Amigo, and Trevor Smith all played decent chunks with the Leafs last season. Trevor Smith, Marley's captain. You had mid-season signing Jared Smithson in there, TJ Brennan, who was an offensive juggernaut on defense for the Marlies, and Spencer Abbott, who was an offensive juggernaut up front for the Marlies. And then a few more minor names, but a very not minor name in Drew McIntyre in net. So before we go talking about, trading Gardner and Kadri and all this craziness, here's what the Leafs could lack next season. In terms of their NHL roster, they need to sign like 2 lines worth of players. And that doesn't even account for the likes of Peter Holland and Jerry D'Amigo. There's been a lot of talk about moving Cody Franzen, moving Jake Gardiner, maybe they don't bring Paul Ranger back. Well, that leaves the Leafs with 4 defensemen. The Leafs have a number of talented defensive prospects waiting in the wings, so maybe that's the route they go with. Then there's the situation in net. There's Jonathan Bernier, and even if he regresses this season, he'll still be pretty good. And it seems like a foregone conclusion that James Reimer is gone. I don't think it's all that likely. The market is so flooded with goalies right now, I don't think the Leafs get anything for him. And because he's a restricted free agent, the Leafs kind of have the upper hand in negotiations. What could he possibly get? He'd be a backup goalie that costs about $2 million bucks. A backup goalie that dragged your team to the playoffs a couple years ago. If, for whatever reason, the Leafs choose to get rid of James Reimer, well then Drew McIntyre is the backup. Oh wait, no, he doesn't have a contract either. Leaving current 4th Leafs goalie Garrett Sparks and 5th goalie Chris Gibson. So you take all this stuff into account. Now, what are some of the big rumors? Well, let's go through them all, whether they're likely or unlikely. We've already mentioned a couple of them. Kadri might get traded, Gardner might get traded, Reimer might get traded. Well, how many times have we heard Dion Phaneuf's name come up in trade rumors now? One thing I've heard whispers of is Colton Orr, who has a contract for next season, may not be back on the Leafs roster. I don't think it'll happen, but one thing we've heard is Tim Gleason could get bought out at some point. Regarding the draft, we've heard lots about the Leafs maybe trading up to get, who knows, Sidney Crosby! Oh, I know he was drafted years ago, but screw Aaron Ekblad. Tim Lewicki's in charge, and Brendan Shanahan's in charge. They're taking us to the cup. This team is a freaking circus right now. Not to mention the morning that I am making this video, Dave Bolland contract talks rampant. Supposedly there is a gap between the Leafs and Bolland. My personal opinion, yeah, I'm pretty happy about that. Not so happy about the details though. The rumor is apparently Bolland wants $5 million per for 8 seasons. And I'm like, yeah, right, bud, good luck. Then there was Steve Simmons reporting this morning, and I think he said it on my podcast a little while ago, that the Leafs want to offer Bolland $4.2 million for 5 seasons, which is basically what the Leafs gave Bozak. Now, most of this video is just talking about hypotheticals and stuff, but since we have some specifics on this one, let me just offer my opinion. For the love of God, no! Look, a lot of you are like, you know what? Bolland brings experience, and he brings leadership, he knows what it takes to win, and he's a positive influence in the locker room. And to that I say, you know what? You're probably right. And you know what? This team could probably use that. And you know what? Dave Bolland has all those things. But for a guy who produces at the low rate that Dave Bolland does, for a guy who takes the amount of penalties that Dave Bolland does, for a guy who plays the ice time that a guy like Dave Bolland does, you've got to be out of your skull, bud. I've gotten messages like, what, you don't like the things that Dave Bolland brings? I love the things that Dave Bolland brings. I just want to see a better player bring those things. The guy is actively literally recovering from a career-threatening injury. You're gonna offer him money and term? And potentially at the expense of a guy like Kadri. Now, I understand exactly why the Leafs would want to keep a guy like Bolland. You talk about those personality qualities, and I think those are all great, and I think a team could use them. I would be totally happy with the Leafs signing Bolland to a reasonable deal. And besides, the Leafs traded for him, and they only get 23 games out of him? That seems like kind of a waste. Just deal with it. Walk away, leave. A year after the Clarkson contract. Really? A year? That's goofy, bud. Walk away. And holy smokes, the deals are rolling in as I'm shooting this video. We already got Nikitin signed up for the Oilers. Ryan Callahan just finalized with the Lightning. The Penguins just have a new coach. So let me wrap this up. Knowing my luck, the Leafs will trade like Kessel and Riley for Malkin or something before I upload this. Is that a rumor now? Is that out there? Don't answer that. You can go ahead and answer. It might be kind of fun. What do the Leafs do with the draft? Like I said, we'll obviously get more in depth with this in tomorrow's draft preview show of the Pan and Go Pizza Steve Dangle podcast. But what I think right now, the Leafs have the 8th overall pick in a draft that, at least at the top of the draft or the bottom of the draft, depending on the way you look at it, does not have a lot of defensive talent. Unless the Leafs somehow trade up to get Aaron Ekblad, who can play in the NHL next year, I think drafting a defenseman would be a mistake. What about a guy like Hayden Fleury, who the Hockey News has ranked 8th overall, right where the Leafs are picking? Nah, there's too much quality forward talent there. Sam Bennett's probably going to go top 3. Sam Reinhart's probably going to go top 3. Leon Draisaitl, unlikely he'll drop out of the top 5. Then there's Michael Del Cole. Then there's William Nylander, Kasperi Kapanen, Kevin Fiala, Nikolai Ehlers. I'm going to assume that's how you spell his name. Robbie Fabry. Then you get into some of the more controversial picks that could go really well or could go really poorly, like Nick Ritchie, Jake Virtanen, or Joshua Hosang. The Leafs have options up front at number 8. I don't think they should trade up. Unless they're super keen on Aaron Ekblad, they shouldn't trade up. In a draft that appears to be pretty deep on forward talent for at least the first 10-15 picks, I just don't think it'll be worth it for the Leafs to offer up a 2nd and a 3rd or some sort of package like that, along with their own pick. Now, there's the interesting prospect of maybe the Leafs offer a Kadri, Gardner, some kind of package in order to get into the top 5, while retaining their own pick. Now, that is an interesting thought. I've received some messages from people asking, well, what if the Leafs trade down? If someone offers you the right deal, fine, but don't move down very far, maybe 2 or 3 picks. This looks like a pretty decent draft, and the Leafs are still a pretty young team, so what's the rush? Draft a guy, develop him well, and hopefully he turns into a star for your team. Go down the list of the top scorers in the NHL from this past season. The majority are with the team that drafted them. To me, screwing up at the draft is the least forgivable thing a team can do. You screw up a trade, well, there's so many variables, there's so many, you know, who had the upper hand, what were the contract details, oh, maybe the guy's got an injury, maybe this, maybe that. Free agency, well, maybe you're really in a bind, and you know, market value, this, that, and the other. I mean, those are both avoidable mistakes, but you can see why they happen. At the draft, you're just picking a player for free. You have a team of scouts that have been scouting these players all season long, at least all season long. You probably saw them the year before they were draft eligible. A guy like Ekblad this year, or McKinnon the season before, you saw long before they were draft year. You have so long to prepare. And yeah, there's other teams drafting, and yeah, they have their scouting staffs too, but with the 8th overall pick, if, right at pick number 6 or 7, someone snags the player you really wanted, there's hundreds of other players! If you did your job, you should be able to pick one. So without delaying much longer, what do you think is going to happen at the draft? Because I think the Leafs are going to go kaboom. There's going to be a lot of news. It's going to be crazy. And I'm just glad that I'm going to be in Philadelphia for it. Are any of you guys going to be in Philly? Tweet me. After round 1, I'm going with a bunch of other bloggers to a place called Bar. Like, it's literally, it's what it's called. Philadelphia, city of brotherly love and apparently creativity. That's it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, click like if you like this video, click subscribe if you really liked it, tell all your friends, and I think the next time I see you, it'll be the draft. And once again, links down below. If you want internet that's as fast as mine, go to techsavvy.com, and tomorrow, brand new Pan and Go Pizza Steve Dangle podcast draft preview.